Sarah Chen walked into the huge meeting room on Nexus Prime. The place was massive, with tall walls that seemed to reach the stars. Around her sat creatures she had only seen in books before. Some looked like walking crystals, others floated, like clouds of light, and a few had tentacles where humans had arms. She carried a small case with humanity's request inside. For 3 years, Earth had been asking to join the Galactic Council. Each time the answer was the same: no. The room buzzed with strange sounds. Some aliens clicked, others hummed, and a few made sounds like music. All these sounds came through, her translator as words, but Sarah could hear the tone underneath. They were laughing at her. Chancellor Vexthol stood at the front of the room. He was 12 feet tall and made of blue crystal that sparkled in the light. When he moved, it sounded like breaking glass. His voice came through the translator as cold and sharp. "Human representative," he said, not even using her name. "We have read your request again. Our answer has not changed." Sarah nodded and stayed calm. She had expected this. "May I ask why, Chancellor?" The crystal being made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Around the room, other aliens joined in what Sarah realized was laughter. "Your species is unremarkable in every way," Vexthol continued. "You have no special abilities. You cannot read minds like the Zephyrians. You cannot share thoughts like the Collective. You cannot control energy like the Ethereals." A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish added its voice. "Your technology is basic. Your culture is simple. Your achievements are small." More. Laughter filled the room. Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her face calm. She had been trained for this moment. "You barely discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago," said another alien with too many eyes. "Most species your age are still fighting wars on their home planets. You only stopped fighting each other 20 years before you reached the stars." "And even then," added a creature that looked like a walking tree, "you probably found space travel by accident. Your kind is known for stumbling into things." The room erupted in more alien laughter. Some creatures made sounds like bells, others like drums, and a few sounded like singing. All of it was directed at Sarah and the small human team behind her. Sarah opened her case and pulled out their request papers. She had written them herself, carefully choosing each word. They asked for full membership in the Galactic Council. They promised that humanity would contribute to galactic peace and progress. "We understand we are young," Sarah said, her voice steady, "but we are eager to learn and help." Chancellor Vexthol's crystal form flickered with what Sarah had learned. Was amusement. "Help? What could your species possibly offer us? You have no unique resources. Your home world is average in every way. Your people live short lives and learn slowly. We have cataloged over 3,000 species in this galaxy," added the jellyfish creature. "Most of them are more advanced than humans. Many have abilities you cannot imagine. All of them have something special that makes them worth our attention." "And humans?" asked the tree-like being. "What makes humans special?" The room fell quiet. Sarah felt 47 pairs of alien eyes watching her. Some had regular eyes, others had sensors that glowed, and a few seemed to see her with their entire bodies. "Nothing," she said simply. The silence stretched longer. Then the laughter started again, louder than before. Some aliens slapped their versions of hands together. Others made sounds like celebration music. "Exactly!" Chancellor Vexthol's voice rang out above the noise. "Nothing special at all. You are perfectly average. In a galaxy full of remarkable species, you are the most unremarkable of all." Sarah closed her case and stood up. Behind her, the other human representatives stood as well. They all wore the same calm expression, as if this rejection meant nothing to them. "We understand your decision, Chancellor," Sarah said with a slight smile. "We will continue to work on improving ourselves." As the human team walked toward the exit, the alien laughter followed them. Sarah could hear comments in dozens of languages, all translated into words she understood, but wished she couldn't. Primitive creatures. They will never amount to anything. Give them another 1,000 years, maybe then they will be interesting. Why do we even waste time meeting with them? Sarah reached the door and turned back one last time. The aliens had already forgotten about the humans and were talking among themselves about important galactic business, trade routes, territorial disputes, and technology exchanges that affected trillions of beings across the stars, business that humans were not worthy to participate in. Outside the meeting room, Sarah's team walked in silence through the corridors of Nexus Prime. The space station was a wonder of alien engineering built by 12 different species working together. It had taken them 300 years to complete. The wall showed images of great galactic achievements: the first interstellar alliance, the defeat of the Shadow Plague, the creation of the Universal Translator, the discovery of the Andromeda, signals, all achievements that had happened without humans. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Rodriguez, one of Sarah's assistants, "should we prepare another request for next year?" Sarah smiled, but there was something different about it now. Something harder. "Oh yes, Lieutenant, we will definitely be preparing for next year." They reached their small ship in the docking bay. It looked tiny and crude next to the elegant vessels of the other species. The human ship was made of metal and composites, while the alien ship seemed to be grown from living materials or formed from pure energy. As they boarded, Sarah activated her personal communicator. The signal was encrypted with codes that no alien species had seen before, because they had never bothered to study human technology deeply enough to find them. "Control, this is Ambassador Chen," she said quietly. "We read you, Ambassador," came the reply from far away. "How did it go?" Sarah looked back at the space station where 47 species had just dismissed humanity as worthless, where creatures with amazing abilities had laughed at the idea that ordinary humans could contribute anything to galactic civilization. "Exactly as planned," she said. "They still think we are harmless and stupid. They still believe we have nothing to offer. They still see us as the most unremarkable species in the galaxy. Perfect, Phase 1 is complete. You may return to Earth." Sarah settled into her captain's chair as the ship prepared to leave Nexus Prime. Through the viewport, she could see the massive space station growing smaller as they moved away. Somewhere inside, 47 species continued their important business, secure in their belief that humans would never be more than a minor inconvenience. "Lieutenant Rodriguez," Sarah said as they jumped to faster than light speed. "Send a message ahead to Earth. Tell them the Galactic Council has rejected us again. Tell them the aliens still think we are completely ordinary." "Yes, ma'am. Anything else?" Sarah's smile was cold as space. "Tell them it is time to begin Phase 2. The ship disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying with it the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, a species that everyone had underestimated, and who had been planning for this moment much longer than anyone realized. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the center of the secret base that did not exist on any official maps. Prometheus Station was hidden deep in an asteroid field that the Galactic Council had marked as worthless. No valuable minerals, no strategic importance, nothing worth claiming. That was exactly why humanity had built their most important facility there. The station was huge inside, carved from a dozen connected asteroids and powered by fusion reactors that aliens thought humans were too primitive to build. Thousands of humans worked here in complete secrecy, and they had been working for 20 years. "Give me the status report," Webb said to the room full of scientists and analysts around him. Dr. Yuki Tanaka looked up from her computer screens. She was small and quiet, but her mind was one of the sharpest in human space. "We have finished analyzing the languages of 38 alien species. We understand how they think, how they make decisions, and what they fear most." Webb nodded. Language was the key to everything, not just the words aliens used, but how they used them. Every species had patterns in their thinking, and humans had been studying those patterns for decades. "What about the cultural analysis?" Webb asked. "Complete for all major species," answered Dr. James Okafor from across the room. "We know their histories, their myths, their heroes, and their mistakes. More importantly, we know their weaknesses." This was the secret that no alien species suspected. While they saw humans as simple and primitive, humanity had been conducting the most detailed study of galactic civilization in history. Every public record, every cultural exchange, every casual conversation had been recorded and analyzed. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed Captain Rosa Martinez, standing on the bridge of a ship that officially did not exist. The UES Perseverance was humanity's first true stealth vessel, invisible to alien sensors and armed with weapons that nobody knew humans possessed. Captain Martinez, Webb acknowledged. What is your report? Rosa grinned like a predator. She had been in space for 15 years, and in that time she had learned to hate the aliens who treated her people like children. The hegemony's defense networks are a joke. They are so sure that nobody can break their codes that they have not changed them in 5 years. Webb raised an eyebrow. 5 years? We have been reading their military communications for 6 months. Every battle plan, every ship movement, every secret meeting. They discuss their strategies openly because they think no primitive species can understand their advanced encryption. Around the room, other reports came in. The collective's hive mind network had been infiltrated by human agents who pretended to be simple traders. The Zephyrian telepaths were being fed false information through humans who had learned to control their surface thoughts. The ethereal energy beings were being monitored through sensors they did not know existed. Sir, said a young analyst from the intelligence division, we have an update on Operation Invisible Army. Webb turned to listen. Operation Invisible Army was the most ambitious part of humanity's plan. For 20 years, humans had been taking the most humble jobs in alien society. Janitors, mechanics, food servers, cargo loaders, maintenance workers, jobs that were so beneath the notice of superior alien species that they had become invisible. We now have humans working in every major alien facility, the analyst continued. They clean the floors in government buildings. They repair the computers in military bases. They serve food at diplomatic meetings. They load cargo on trading ships. And none of the aliens suspect? Webb asked. No, sir. To them, we are just part of the background. They talk freely around us because they think we are too stupid to understand what they are saying. Webb smiled grimly. The aliens' arrogance was their greatest weakness. They were so convinced of their own superiority that they never considered that the primitive humans around them might be listening, learning, and planning. Dr. Tanaka pulled up another display. Sir, we have successfully hacked into the central databases of 12 major species. We have their complete technological specifications, their military capabilities, and their economic records. How? Webb asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. They gave us access themselves, Tanaka replied. Every trade agreement they forced us to accept included requirements for human workers to maintain their systems. They wanted cheap labor for the technical jobs their own people considered beneath them. Webb shook his head in amazement. The aliens had literally paid humans to learn their deepest secrets. They had opened their most secure facilities to human technicians because they believed humans were too primitive to understand what they were seeing. What about the Zephyrian mind readers? Webb asked Dr. Okafor. That was tricky, Okafor admitted. But we solved it. Telepathy works both ways. While they have been reading human thoughts, our volunteers have been learning to broadcast false information directly into their minds. You mean? Yes, sir. The Zephyrians think they know what humanity is planning because we have been letting them overhear exactly what we wanted them to know. They are completely confident that humans are harmless because that is what we have been teaching them to believe. Webb walked to the main display screen. It showed a map of the entire galaxy, with human assets marked in red. There were thousands of red dots scattered across hundreds of worlds. Each dot represented a human who was working in secret, gathering information and preparing for the day when humanity would reveal its true capabilities. How much longer do we need? Webb asked. The Galactic Trade Summit is in 18 months, Tanaka answered. Every important alien leader will be there. Their best scientists, their military commanders, their economic ministers, all in one place, all feeling completely safe. Webb nodded. The Trade Summit happened every 5 years, and it was the most secure event in galactic civilization. No weapons were allowed, no military ships, no security threats. It was considered the safest place in the galaxy, which made it the perfect target. 18 months, Webb repeated. Can we be ready? Sir, said Captain Martinez from her hologram. We have been ready for 10 years. The question is not whether we can do it. The question is whether you are ready to change the galaxy forever. Webb looked around the room at the faces of humanity's best and brightest. Scientists who had spent decades studying alien weaknesses. Soldiers who had trained for a war that nobody saw coming. Intelligence agents who had infiltrated every major alien civilization. All of them were waiting for his decision. Begin the final preparations, Webb said quietly. In 18 months, the galaxy is going to learn that the most dangerous thing in the universe is not the strongest species, or the smartest species, or the species with the most amazing abilities. He paused and looked directly at the hologram of Captain Martinez. The most dangerous thing in the universe is the species that everyone underestimates. Around the room, humans began working with new energy. Some contacted secret agents on distant worlds. Others began final preparations of hidden weapons and ships. A few started composing the message that would be broadcast across the galaxy on the day humanity revealed its true nature. In 18 months, the Galactic Council would hold another meeting. But this time, humanity would not be asking for permission to join. This time, humanity would be announcing that it was taking over. The Galactic Trade Summit on Halcyon 7th was the most beautiful event in known space. The planet was famous for its rainbow oceans and crystal cities that floated in the clouds. Delegates from every major species had come here to discuss trade, deals worth more money than most worlds would see in 1,000 years. Chancellor Vexthul stood on a balcony overlooking the prismatic seas, talking with the prime node of the collective. They were discussing mining rights in the outer rim when every screen, every computer, every communication device on the planet went dark at exactly the same moment. Technical problems, muttered the ethereal trade minister, his energy form flickering with annoyance. These lesser worlds never maintain their systems properly. Inside the great assembly hall, thousands of alien delegates looked around in confusion. The emergency lights came on, casting strange shadows across faces that had never known real fear. Then Sarah Chen's voice spoke from every speaker on the planet. Greetings, members of the Galactic Council. The aliens looked at each other in surprise. How was a human voice coming through their communication systems? More importantly, how was it coming through systems that were supposed to be completely secure? You have spent 50 years telling us that humanity lacks distinction, lacks capability, lacks worth. Sarah's voice continued, calm and polite. We wanted to take this opportunity to clarify a few misconceptions. The screens blazed back to life, but instead of trade information, they showed live images from across the galaxy. Every alien delegate could see their homeworlds, their military bases, their most secure facilities, and they could see that something was very, very wrong. On the screens, the hegemony's mighty orbital defense platforms were powering down one by one. These were weapons that could destroy entire fleets, controlled by the most advanced computers in the galaxy. But now they were shutting off like toys that had lost their batteries. The collective's hive ships, each one home to millions of connected minds, were drifting dead in space. Their neural networks had been cut by precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses that should have been impossible for humans to create. Zephyrian meditation worlds, connected by telepathic relays that had worked for thousands of years, were suddenly isolated and alone. Their psychic networks had gone silent for the first time in recorded history. You see, Sarah's voice explained as if she was discussing the weather, while you were dismissing us as primitive and irrelevant, we were learning. Chancellor Vexthul's crystal form began to vibrate with what humans had learned to recognize as fear. Around the assembly hall, alien delegates were trying to contact their home worlds. None of their communications were working. Every trade agreement you forced us to accept gave us access to your technology, Sarah continued. Every menial job you assigned to our people gave us insight into your infrastructure. Every condescending conversation taught us your weaknesses. The screens, more images appeared. Human maintenance workers were shown standing calmly in the heart of hegemony military bases. Human janitors were revealed to be highly trained technicians who had spent decades learning alien systems. Human food servers were actually intelligence agents who had been recording every classified conversation. The most shocking image showed a human woman standing in the collective's central processing chamber, the most secure location in their entire civilization. She waved politely at the camera before walking out through doors that should have been impossible to open. The beauty of being underestimated, Sarah observed, is that everyone assumes your current limitations are permanent. Captain Rosa Martinez's stealth ships began appearing around Halcyon 7 like ghosts becoming solid. The vessels were sleek and deadly, armed with weapons that combined human engineering with technology stolen from every major species in the galaxy. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy, at every major population center, every trade hub, every military installation. Human ships were materializing out of empty space. You never imagined that a species with 90-year lifespans might plan operations spanning 50 years, Sarah's voice continued. You never considered that beings without natural telepathy might become very good at keeping secrets. The ethereal trade minister tried to use his energy powers to break through the communication blockade. Nothing happened. His abilities, which had never failed him before, were being dampened by fields that humans had learned to generate. A Zephyrian diplomat attempted to read the thoughts of humans in the crowd, hoping to understand what was happening. Instead of thoughts, he found carefully constructed mental barriers that fed him false information. The humans had learned to turn telepathy against itself. For 20 years, your people have been surrounded by humans, Sarah explained. We served. Your food cleaned your floors, repaired your machines, and loaded your cargo. We were so ordinary, so unremarkable that you forgot we were even there. The screens showed surveillance footage from across the galaxy. Alien leaders discussing secret plans while human servers stood 3 feet away, listening to every word. Military commanders revealing classified information while human mechanics worked on their computers. Diplomatic meetings where human translators recorded every negotiation. And while we listened, we learned, Sarah said. We learned your languages, your cultures, your fears, and your weaknesses. We learned how you think, how you plan, and how you fight. Most importantly, we learned that every single species in this galaxy considers itself superior to every other species. Chancellor Vexthal finally found his voice. What do you want? He demanded, his crystal form vibrating with rage and fear. Want? Sarah's voice sounded genuinely surprised. Chancellor, we do not want anything from you. We are here to give you something. The confusion in the assembly hall was absolute. Every alien species had expected conquest, slavery, or revenge. None of them had expected an offer of help. You see, we spent 50 years studying every species in this galaxy, and we discovered something remarkable. Every single one of you has solutions to problems that you do not even know other species have. New images appeared on the screens. Human scientists were shown working alongside alien researchers, combining technologies in ways that neither species had imagined alone. Hegemony crystal tech enhanced with human engineering. Collective hive minds improved with human concepts of individual initiative. Zephyrian telepathy amplified by human communication technology. The hegemony's crystals can store more energy than our fusion reactors, Sarah explained. But they break down because you never developed proper maintenance protocols. The collective can process information faster than any computer we have ever built, but you never learned to think creatively because you never valued individual ideas. More examples followed. The ethereals could manipulate energy directly, but they had never learned to work with matter. The Zephyrians could read minds across vast distances, but they had never developed technology to enhance their natural abilities. Every species in this galaxy has incredible abilities, Sarah said. But you have all been so focused on your own superiority that you never learned to work together. You never realized that cooperation could make everyone stronger. The human ships around Halcyon 7 had not fired a single shot. They were simply there, a demonstration of power that nobody had seen coming. So here is our offer, Sarah concluded. We can continue the old system where every species looks down on every other species, where progress is slow, and where the galaxy's greatest minds waste time competing instead of collaborating. She paused, and the silence stretched across the galaxy. Or we can try something new. Something that has never been attempted in galactic history. We can work together, all of us, as equals. In the assembly hall on Halcyon 7th, 47 species sat in stunned silence. The humans had not conquered them. They had not enslaved them. They had not sought revenge. Instead, they had offered partnership. And every alien delegate was beginning to realize that this offer came from the only species in the galaxy that had actually learned to understand all the others. 6 months after what historians called the Great Revelation, the galaxy had changed in ways nobody had expected. Instead of the iron-fisted rule that many species feared, humanity had surprised everyone with their approach to leadership. Emperor Marcus Webb stood in the rebuilt council chamber on Unity Station, the new seat of galactic government. The chamber had been redesigned with typical human practicality. Better lighting for species with different kinds of eyes. Seating that worked for creatures with tentacles, wings, or crystalline bodies. Translation systems that actually translated, meaning instead of just words. Webb himself looked uncomfortable with his new title. He had accepted it only after the old Galactic Council had collapsed and someone needed to coordinate the massive changes happening across known space. Report from the Zephyrian colonies, announced Dr. Yuki Tanaka, now serving as Minister of Development. Agricultural production is up 30% since we introduced soil enhancement techniques. This was humanity's secret weapon that nobody had predicted. They genuinely wanted to help. After decades of being treated as second-class citizens, humans understood what it felt like to be overlooked and undervalued. Instead of seeking revenge, they chose improvement. The new representative from the collective, a being called Harmony, processed this information through neural pathways that had been upgraded with human modifications. Our productivity has increased 47% since we began allowing individual initiative within our hive structure. We had not considered that unity and individual thought could work together. Webb nodded. That is the advantage of being average in every way. We can understand and work with everyone. We do not have the ethereal's energy powers, but we can build machines that do the same job. We do not have hegemony crystal technology, but we can reverse engineer it and make it better. The former Chancellor Vexthol, now regional administrator, for the core world still struggled with the new reality. His crystalline form flickered with embarrassment. I must admit, Emperor Webb, your species' methods are unexpected. We predicted conquest, enslavement, resource extraction. That is what your species would have done, Webb replied without anger. But humans have always been better at cooperation than domination. We had 50 years to study every species in this galaxy, and we learned that everyone was carrying around solutions to problems they did not know other species had. The great revelation was not just that humans had been planning and preparing. It was that they had been planning for everyone's benefit. Their position as cosmic underdogs had let them see what the self-proclaimed superior species had missed. The galaxy worked better when it actually worked together. Captain Rosa Martinez, now Minister of Commerce, added her report. The new universal trade system shows economic efficiency up across all sectors. It turns out that when you are not trying to maintain artificial scarcity to preserve your advantages, everyone makes more profit. The changes were visible everywhere. Hegemony crystal farms now used human agricultural techniques and produced twice as much energy storage material. Collective hive ships carried human-designed individual thinking modules that made their decisions faster and more creative. Zephyrian telepaths used human-built amplifiers that let them communicate across entire star systems. The Ethereal Consortium reports that cooperation with human engineers has solved their matter manipulation problems, continued Martinez. They can now create solid structures that last for centuries instead of days. Webb looked around the chamber at representatives of species that had once dismissed humanity as worthless. Some seemed genuinely happy with the changes. Others were still confused by the new system. All of them were learning what humans had always known. Being underestimated was a great advantage, until you chose to stop being underestimated. What? About the resistance movements? Webb asked. Dr. Tanaka pulled up a holographic display. The supremacist coalition has lost most of its support. Turns out that when everyone's lives improve, it is hard to convince them that change is bad. The supremacist coalition had formed in the first months after the revelation. It was made up of aliens who believed their species should rule over others. They had tried to organize rebellions against human leadership. Their problem was that human leadership actually worked. The hegemony rebels discovered that their crystal technology works better with human improvements, Tanaka continued. The collective separatists found that individual thinking made their hive mind more efficient, not less. The ethereal purists learned that solid matter made their energy forms more stable. It was hard to rebel against a system that made your life better. Webb activated a communication channel to the Outer Rim territories. Admiral Patel, status report. Admiral Patel appeared as a hologram. Behind her, the bridge of her ship showed a mix of human and alien crew members working together. The border surveys are complete, sir. We have found 17 new worlds suitable for colonization, and 3 more that can be terraformed with combined technology. This was another human innovation. Exploration for its own sake. Most alien species only explored when they needed resources or territory. Humans explored because they were curious about what was out there. Any signs of hostile species? Webb asked. Nothing significant. A few pirates, some territorial disputes between minor species, all resolved through negotiation rather than force. Webb smiled. Negotiation was another human strength. When you had spent 50 years being nobody special, you got good at talking your way out of problems. Emperor, said Harmony from the collective, we have a question about the education exchange program. What kind of question? Our young are asking to study at human universities. They want to learn individual thinking and creative problem solving. This is unprecedented in our history. Around the chamber, similar reports came in. Hegemony youth wanted to study human engineering. Zephyrian children were learning to build technology instead of relying only on telepathy. Ethereal energy beings were experimenting with physical forms. Let them study, Webb said simply. The whole point is that everyone has something to learn from everyone else. The transformation was not limited to technology and economics. Art, music, literature, and philosophy were all changing as species began to share ideas instead of hoarding them. Human jazz was being performed by Zephyrian telepaths who could share the emotional experience directly with their audiences. Hegemony. Crystal sculptures were being created by human artists who understood how light and sound interacted with the materials. There is one more thing, Dr. Tanaka said quietly. The deep space monitoring stations have detected something. Webb turned, his attention to her. What kind of something? Organized signals from outside our galaxy, long-range communications that suggest other galactic civilizations. The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Other galaxies meant other civilizations, which probably meant other species that might look down on this galaxy's inhabitants as primitive. How do you think they will react? Asked former Chancellor Vexthol. When they discover that this galaxy is led by the species everyone used to consider least remarkable. Webb's smile was the same one he had worn in secret meetings 20 years ago. I think they are about to learn the same lesson you learned. Never underestimate someone just because they seem ordinary. He looked around the chamber at representatives who had once laughed at humanity's request to join their council. Now those same beings were part of a galactic confederation that was more successful, more innovative, and more ambitious than anyone had imagined possible. Besides, Webb continued, by the time they figure out what we are capable of, we will have already figured out what they are capable of. And then we will find ways to work together that none of us could have achieved alone. The galaxy that had once dismissed humanity as irrelevant now bore the clear mark of human influence, not through conquest or fear, but through the revolutionary idea that everyone had value and everyone had something to contribute. As reports continued to flow in from across known space, Webb reflected on the long journey from rejection to leadership. Humanity had gotten what it always wanted, not to rule through superiority, but to lead through the understanding that cooperation made everyone stronger. At last, humanity ruled the galaxy, and the galaxy had never been in better hands. 25 years after the Great Revelation, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Unity Station and marveled at what cooperation could accomplish. She was 73 years old now, her hair silver, and her face lined with the marks of a life well lived. Her title was Chief Historical Advisor, but everyone still called her Ambassador. Through the massive windows of transparent aluminum, she could see the greatest engineering project in galactic history. The Andromeda Gateway stretched across space, like a bridge made of light and metal, connecting 5 different star systems in a web of impossible beauty. Ships from every known species worked together on the construction. Human engineering directed the overall project. Hegemony crystals stored and channeled the enormous energies required. Ethereal beings manipulated those energies with their natural abilities. Zephyrian telepaths coordinated the work across vast distances. The collective's hive minds calculated trajectories and structural stresses that would have taken individual minds years to figure out. Amazing, is it not? Sarah turned to see Emperor Marcus Webb approaching. He was 81 now, his hair white and his movements slower, but his eyes were still sharp. Behind him walked a group that would have been impossible 25 years ago. A hegemony crystal being discussing mineral extraction with a collective node, while a young Zephyrian diplomat shared jokes with an ethereal energy form. "Do you remember when our biggest problem was getting them to let us sit at their table?" Sarah asked with a laugh. "Now our biggest problem is managing all the projects everyone wants to work on together," Webb replied, activating a holographic display that showed statistics from across the galaxy. Poverty eliminated on 68% of inhabited worlds. Average lifespan increased for all species. Successful terraforming of dead worlds using combined technologies. 7 new star systems discovered and colonized. But the real measure of humanity's success was not in numbers. It was in the fundamental change in how the galaxy saw itself. The old system of species-based hierarchies had crumbled, replaced by a merit-based confederation where good ideas mattered more than who thought of them. Sarah, Marcus. Dr. Yuki Tanaka joined them, her hair now completely white but her mind still sharp. "The deep space arrays have something interesting to report." She activated her own display, showing images from the galaxy's edge. Long-range sensors are detecting organized signals from the Magellanic Clouds. It looks like there are other galactic civilizations out there, and they seem to be aware of us. Sarah and Webb exchanged glances. They had been expecting this day for years. Other galaxies meant other civilizations, which probably meant other species that would look at this galaxy's inhabitants as primitive backwater barbarians. "Any idea what they think of us?" Webb asked. "From the signal patterns, it seems they are curious. Some of the transmissions suggest they have been watching our recent changes with interest." Sarah smiled. "I wonder what they make of a galaxy ruled by the species that everyone used to consider the most unremarkable." Around them, the great work continued. Through the windows, they could see the final segments of the Andromeda Gateway being installed. Once complete, it would allow ships to travel between galaxies in days instead of centuries. It was humanity's next impossible dream, made possible by the cooperation of species that had once refused to work together. "Ma'am," said a young human technician, approaching with a data pad. "We have received a direct communication from the Magellanic Clouds. It is addressed to the Galactic Authority of the Milky Way." Webb took the pad and read the message. His eyebrows rose with interest. "They want to establish diplomatic contact. They are requesting permission to send an ambassador." "Permission?" Sarah asked. "That is interesting. Most first contact scenarios assume the other side will demand rather than ask." "It gets better," Webb continued reading. "They say they have been monitoring our broadcasts for the past decade. They are impressed by our unprecedented interspecies cooperation and want to learn how we achieved it." Tanaka laughed. "They want to learn from us? The galaxy that was considered a backwater failure just 25 years ago?" "It seems," Webb said with growing amusement, "that news of our transformation has spread beyond our galaxy. Other civilizations are watching to see if our model of cooperation can work on an intergalactic scale. Sarah walked back to the observation window. Below her, ships from dozens of species worked together with an efficiency that would have been impossible under the old system. Humans coordinated the work, but every species contributed their unique abilities to the greater project. "You know what this means?" she said quietly. "What?" Webb asked, joining her at the window. 25 years ago, we were rejected by our own galaxy for being too ordinary. Now other galaxies want to learn from us. The irony was perfect. Humanity had spent 50 years being dismissed as unremarkable, only to create the most remarkable transformation in galactic history. Their ordinariness had become their greatest strength, allowing them to understand and unite species that had never been able to work together. "There is something else," Tanaka said, reading from her own datapad. "The message includes technical specifications for their faster-than-light communication system. They are sharing their technology with us as a gesture of good faith." Webb shook his head in wonder. When was the last time a first contact situation began with aliens offering to share their technology? "Never," Sarah replied. "Usually everyone tries to hide their capabilities until they figure out who has the advantage." But humanity had changed the rules. By demonstrating that cooperation worked better than competition, they had created a new model for how civilizations could interact. Instead of each species trying to dominate others, they had shown that everyone benefited when everyone contributed. "What should our response be?" the young technician asked. Sarah looked at Webb, who nodded for her to answer. As the architect of humanity's diplomatic strategy, she had earned the right to speak for the galaxy. "Tell them they are welcome to send an ambassador," she said. "Tell them we look forward to learning about their civilizations and sharing what we have learned about cooperation." She paused, then smiled. "And tell them that while we rule this galaxy, we rule it by serving it. Every species here has a voice, every idea is considered, and every being matters." As the technician hurried away to compose the response, Sarah reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point, from rejection and dismissal to leadership and respect, from being the most overlooked species in the galaxy to being the example that other galaxies wanted to follow. "Do you think it will work?" Webb asked. "This model of cooperation applied to multiple galaxies?" Sarah watched a group of young aliens working together on the Gateway project. Humans, hegemony crystal beings, collective nodes, Zephyrians, and ethereals all learning from each other and building something none of them could have imagined alone. "Look at them," she said. 25 years ago, those species were convinced they had nothing in common. They thought cooperation was weakness and competition was strength. And now they are building a bridge to another galaxy together. Webb nodded slowly. "So you think it will work?" Sarah's smile was confident. "Marcus, we spent 50 years being underestimated by our own galaxy. In that time, we learned that the most dangerous thing in the universe is not the strongest species, or the smartest species, or the species with the most amazing abilities." She turned to look directly at him. "The most dangerous thing in the universe is the species that everyone underestimates. And right now, other galaxies are probably underestimating what a group of primitive species from the Milky Way can accomplish." Through the observation window, the Andromeda Gateway pulsed with energy as its final connections were made. Soon, ships would travel between galaxies as easily as they once traveled between star systems. And when they did, they would carry with them the most revolutionary idea in cosmic history. The idea that everyone had value, everyone had something to contribute, and everyone deserved to be heard. At last, humanity ruled the galaxy. But more importantly, they had taught the galaxy to rule itself through cooperation instead of domination. And now that lesson was about to spread to the stars beyond, carried by the species that had transformed from the most overlooked to the most unstoppable force in known space. The age of human dominance had become the age of universal cooperation, and the universe would never be the same.